Okay, welcome to another episode of Coffee with Samso. I've got George Bauk here with me for an update. We're here at the Millpint Caffe Bookshop here in South Perth on a very hot summer day in Perth. George, thanks for coming again.
No problem.
It's been a while, man. You know, I think the last time we spoke, you were just on the road to fundraising or something in the US after giving us a talk on the company and what rare earths were.
Yep.
Maybe you can give us an update since then on what's been happening.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, when you raise it, we've just come back from another trip to the US. So that was back in September when Scott Morrison went across to have the national dinner with, or the state dinner with Donald Trump.
Yep.
And rare earths was one of the top three topics of that particular event. So we went over there, met with a number of government agencies, very positive response, really, you know, engaged, enthusiastic, met with the Australian Embassy. Then I went to Bangkok about a month ago. There was the Indo-Pacific Business Forum that was on the outskirts of ASEAN. Mm-hmm. The Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, was there, and Birmingham, the Minister for Trade was there from an Australian perspective. Really good dialogue, and you could see the dialogue go to another level. Mm-hmm. You know, these guys were serious and, you know, game on. And then just came back from a delegation with Minister Canavan, our Federal Minister of Mines. And what you're seeing is, the crisis has been stated. Mm. The Australian government's highlighted this $4 billion defence fund that they are now allowing the rare earth market to get access to. There was an MOU signed between USGS and Geoscience Australia.
Okay.
So a lot of things happening at that geopolitical level.
So when you say, going back to what you just mentioned about the fund, well, what does that actually mean? Are you getting access to real cash for funding, or it's just access to expertise that they have?
No. So there's an allocated amount of money in the Australian federal budget allocated to defence activities. Yep. And so what they've done about 2-3 weeks ago was they've actually expanded the charter, for a bit of a word, of what is allowable to get access to that funding. Mm-hmm. And that includes now rare earths, so the mining of rare earths. Oh, okay. So they've now put the Australian Export Agency in charge of the interface between the mining industry and that fund. Yeah. And so that's now being worked through. So, Canavan's got a new department in his portfolio that's looking at critical minerals. Yep. So there's a lot of activity happening. How that's going to transpire into actual funding and how it flows into the mining companies, that's now what is being worked through.
Okay. I mean, when I hear a lot of this kind of stuff, it's like years away and things. Well, what's kind of time frame do you think it would mean?
Yeah, look, I mean, things don't happen overnight. Yeah. But I had the sense in the last 3 months that we've seen a real speed of action, if you like. So it's difficult to make the comment about how quick it's going to be. But it's going to be quicker than we think. I know that's doesn't say anything, but it's someone made the comment about when the US had a crisis with oil. That was their big crisis many years ago. Within 2 decades, they went from crisis to being a net exporter of oil. Right. Mm. The rare earths, they're obviously in the bunker, for a better word, sitting there and planning how do they have an outside of China supply chain. So there's some bits are going, okay, what's happening? But I think when it happens, it's going to happen really quickly.
Recently, I mean, we've spoken about this, how, the rare sort of went for that big run in 2010 somewhere. Yep. Sort of then sort of died, went missing, and then suddenly recently had a run and then sort of plateaued out a bit again. Recently, I've been hearing people saying, I want to get into rare earths and some overseas guys are hearing. And when that happens, my ears pick up a bit more, because normally they're the last to hear of stuff. What is this part of that talk, or is there something else brewing in the background that is happening that general people don't get to know?
Oh, look, I mean, the electric vehicle uplift has been slower than we all expected, right? So, you know, there was a lot of that rage about 18 months ago going electric vehicles are going to hit all these targets, etc. Hasn't been as quick, but everyone's still on the same bandwagon that it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when, right?
Yep.
But what's been added to the topic and agenda right now is the whole defence conversation. You know, it's the fact that, you know, the defence have come along and said there is a crisis. You know, we cannot no longer rely on a monopolistic supply chain, you know, inside China. We've got to look at an alternative. So it's starting to go beyond talk. These things can't be changed overnight. I mean, we know the mining industry, when you go through approvals and all the rest of it, from discovery to production, etc. I think a lot of people appreciate these are long processes that need to be, you know, undertaken, if you like. And so, you know, I think there's planning, because we're talking about the whole supply chain, not just, you know, mining, if you like. So there is no question that people are paying. They're starting to look into what rare earths are all about.
Yeah, I mean, part of that conversation was, you know, we were talking about how who's doing this and that. And the only two real rare earths companies that I know of, and that's not anything to measure by, is Arafura and yourself, obviously. That's at that level that I know of. Is that
Linus?
Linus, yeah, but yeah, I guess I should have added Linus. But is that it?
Well, look, I mean, when you look at it, if you sort of categorise around the world, if you like, you've got Linus are leading the pack, right? They've developed their project in Mount Weld in Western Australia. They've got their separation facility in Malaysia. They've done a lot of the heavy lifting in a well-established business, putting out returns and all the rest of it. Then when you look at the next level of production, it's us, right? And then you go past Northern Minerals, and then you've got a whole host of companies that are looking to get into production. Okay, so there's, you know, it's a small list, but when you start looking at production, right, you've got Linus, Northern Minerals, you've got Molycorp, or now it's called Mountain Pass Mines in the US, that's trying to get back into production. There's not a lot of production happening outside of China.
So those names you mentioned, is that it in terms of outside of China, or is it just in Australia?
Oh no, look, you've got, I mean, you know, you've got Burma's producing product through in situ leach, so, you know, concerns about the environmental aspects. Look, you've got projects in Canada, there's some projects in the US, you've got some Brazilian projects, one in Argentina, some African projects. So there are projects around, but they're all at different stages. A lot of them went into quite severe care and maintenance over the last 5-6 years, if you like. Some have re-emerged, some haven't. So I think, you know, if I look at it from a nationalistic perspective, Australia is well positioned to be a key player in this. Like we're probably the most advanced out of, you know, if you go and pull this together from a country perspective, the Aussie projects are well advanced.
Yeah, I mean, I was when I was talking to people in terms of rare earths, I mean, there's still a lot of people not understanding what you use it for.
Yep.
You know, I think we had this discussion the last time, and they all talk about rare earths. I said, oh, it's just about permanent magnets. And you get this look at you, and you're like, you know, I thought, oh. And that was when the realization I had that people just throw the word around.
Yep.
But they don't actually know what it's for.
Yep.
Because, you know, then you talk to the academics, they say, oh, there's all these elements in it. But at the end of the day, there's only 2 or 3 or 4 that are important, right?
Exactly.
Maybe you can, that's a fair call?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, if you look at what's driven the rare earth whole thematic and focus and all that, it's all about the permanent magnet that you described. So you've got neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium and terbium are the 4 real key elements that go into the permanent magnet, right? So you're talking about these magnets that go into motors that are more efficient, smaller, lighter, and so therefore if you stand back and think about the electric vehicle, right? The electric vehicle, they're trying to make it lighter. They're trying to make sure that they can get better range per pound of lithium put into that car, if you like. Okay, so lithium's driving the battery, right? But it's the motor where the rare earths go into. So we've got to distinguish what the lithiums are used for and what the rare earths are used for. Okay, they're very separate applications, if you like. There's rare earths in traditional cars, so it's not just an application for electric vehicles, it's also used in hybrid vehicles. So the permanent magnet's really been the driver of the value of rare earths.
There's no other major uses of that, is there?
Oh look, you start getting into, cerium and lanthanums for their applications with catalytic converters and polishing powders, etc. I mean, one of the things I saw on LinkedIn on the weekend was the Mineral Council, I think, talked about the application of lutetium, which is LU as a... lutetium. And if you look at lutetium, that goes into a PET scanner, and that allows for earlier detection of cancer and Alzheimer's. So when you look at rare earths, the thing for me, look what's in front of you now in terms of an iPad, right? 10 years ago, what were our thoughts of where iPads were really going to get to? Did we really believe they were going to be as openly used as what they are today? Look at how many people have got watches that are the smartwatch. How many metals and minerals go into those? So when you look at the unknown from a predictable demand perspective, rare earth suite has been, the upside is massive. Do we really understand what the applications are of rare earths? Now, I could challenge you and say there's probably a number of technologies that are probably shelved at the moment because we actually see some people thinking, do I want to go and try to commercialise a new technology that I'm hamstrung by China when it comes to supply chain? So when they do their analysis, they'll go, will I go and invest and develop this project? And one of my critical elements that I need for that project is rare earths that China dominate. So what other, I think rare earths could even explode further if you've got a more secure supply.
This is the bit that I'm, always thinking of, that it's a critical element, a bit like my history with tungsten, but yet it's so controlled by one nation or one group, you want to call them, but yet the big brother there lets it happen. This is the bit that I don't get. You would have thought that this guy would be all over the thing, the Cold War thing and that kind of stuff.
But just you go back to '92 when the Chinese premier at the time said Saudi has oil and China has rare earths, right? Go back to '92. I mean, most people didn't even know it existed on the periodic table. It was like, what's rare? Literally, what's rare earths? Like, absolutely no idea. Now, through that time frame, we started seeing the world take a different path with things like globalization. Okay, let's go and put our manufacturing into cheaper Southeast Asian countries and get lower costs and therefore bigger margins, etc. There was a different trend. Okay, so we didn't understand the consequence of shifting things, industries collapsing, and next minute people just didn't see what was coming. And all of a sudden, China strategically positioned themselves to dominate the rare earth space, right? And people were happy with that for a while, right? It wasn't until that dispute in between China and Japan over those islands that they went, no, we're not going to give it to you. And it's only at that point people do a stock take and go, right, this is critical. Now, that was identified as critical 7 years ago. How much has really happened in the last 7 years? Right? Has the action in the last 7 years really reflected the criticality? No. Has things changed in the last 7 years that when they've now done the stock take to say, is this a good trend to have, that we actually haven't improved our position in rare earths, and where will we be in 10 years' time? So I actually think that the action today, right, okay, what's happened in the last week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but I just feel there's that undercurrent that, the old saying, Houston, we have a problem. I really get that sense that the right people are realising how critical rare earths are.
But it's strange how it happened so late. I never sort of underestimate what the smarter, more educated people, more informed people out there. But you sort of look at it and you're saying, Houston, we have a problem. that should have been set maybe 10, 15 years ago.
That's right.
And yet it's set now. I kind of was thinking, that's really hard to believe in some sense, you know?
Yeah, look, and it just comes down to, I think, yeah, it is hard to believe. You know, like, you know, I've been all in on rare earths for the last 10 years, right? I've been with Northern Minerals coming up 10 years, and you know, this hasn't surprised us that this day is coming. You know, we've talked about this, and I think a lot of people have started, you know, for periods of thinking, really, you know, is it really that critical, or you know, have you lost perspective, if you like? And getting back up in the 100,000 feet view, as they call it in the US, you know, they have realised these minerals are critical, right? And action has to be taken today. But the problem you've got is that you look at Australia as the traditional quarry mine. That's not good enough. It's not good enough just to produce a mixed rare earth carbonate. You've got to separate them. You've got to produce metal. You've got to produce alloys. You've got to make magnets. You've got to make the actual carousel. You've got to, you know, so it's a supply chain challenge as opposed to just little blocks, right? Because right now, if Northern Minerals stopped producing a mixed rare earth carbonate, where are all the factories to separate it? They're in China. So what are we doing to be part of a new solution? Right, you've got to go into separation. That is such a critical part that we've now got to participate in. So that's really big for us.
I guess the logical thing for Australia is to like you said, you know, have that vertical integration here as opposed to trying to just sell the ore, which makes, I mean, in terms of minerals or elements, a lot of people can understand the geology behind how you get gold, how you get nickel, how you get copper. Is rare earth just, you know, a simplistic geology 101? Is it just soft rock, or is it hard?
Yep. So ours is hard rock. So ours is within ours is hydrothermal. So it's, you know, 90% of our host rock is actually silica quartz. So we have no free dig. So our ore goes through, you know, what many people would assume happens in the gold industry, where we've got to crush it, grind it, and so forth to actually break apart that rock to eventually get to the rare earths. I think a lot of people have been scared, the right word. People get, you know, once you say, oh, there's 17 elements, they go, I don't want a science, you know, lesson. Gold is straightforward. People have sort of almost a simplistic knowledge. I mean, look at lithium. Lithium's one element. So everyone felt they could understand lithium a lot better. You know, you go to a shop and you buy a lithium battery and they feel, yep, lithium battery, lithium's one element, understand it. But do they really understand it? And that's got a complex supply chain. But with rare earths, when Mother Nature puts 17 elements together, right, or they're, you know, and next minute what we've got to do is try to pull them apart, and then you start talking about the individual elements, people start thinking, oh, hold on. So that's why, you know, 55% of our revenue is dysprosium. You know, 75% is dysprosium and terbium. So what we try to do is we just want to focus on the permanent magnet, rare earth elements, if you like. That's been a problem with trying to simplify the message and the story. You know, the geology, not many people have explored for rare earths. Rare earths have been found looking for something else, be it a phosphate deposit, being a uranium deposit, and next minute, geez, hold on, what have we got here? So, you know, it's only been in recent times that you could say people have truly put an eye to saying, what is it? What are the characteristics I need to look for to actually go looking for rare earths?
Actually, no, I've never thought about it until you mentioned it. Actually, I've never come across an rare earth exploration project.
Well, you have. We're talking to us.
Oh, yeah, but you know, by the time I got to you, you've already done all the thing. I've never actually seen here. You know, you see many exploration, gold, nickel, whatever, but I've never seen one.
I tell you what, I love when a geologist comes to our office and we'll be talking about something and there'll be some rocks in the office, and next minute they'll go, what's this? And we'll tell them about it, mate. And you see them sort of looking up in the air and you're thinking, what's wrong? And they're going, just trying to think I've seen this in my field and my journeys over time, because, you know, some of the guys go xenotime and they go, geez, did I learn xenotime when I went to uni? Was that one of the minerals that we actually was taught. You know, like we're talking about a part of the periodic table that if you're sick for that, you know, that lecture in year 2 of geology, you probably missed it, right?
Yeah, that'd be me.
You know, so you know, it's one of those. You know, that's why if you go back when we were in the US the other week, Minister Canavan and his counterparts, they actually signed an MOU between the USGS and Geoscience to actually come together and make sure, you know, to understand the science of rare earths. And that's important. I mean, we can look at the crisis right now, but it's important to have a longer view, if you know what I mean, of the journey.
Yeah, no, actually we should do some research on how you go looking for rare earths, because I've never actually thought about it until you just mentioned it then.
Come speak to our exploration manager. He'll give you an interesting, you know, he's done a lot of learning along the way, believe it or not. I mean, there's been, you know, it's a hydrothermal system, so you can pick up on some other minerals. So you go and you apply some standard techniques, if you like, but you know, you're actually now thinking about, okay, I'm looking for this mineral. What are the trace elements? What am I looking for? What are the settings, etc.? I mean, one of the blessings we've got is we've got an XRF machine. We start drilling, we get instant results on how we're going, because we've got hundreds of thousands of data points now. We've got a rough idea what our intersection is. Guys that are drilling gold still, unless it's visible, they're waiting for assay results. The rig leaves, did I have a discovery? You know, they might pan a bit. We're getting instant results. So there's a little bit of a win for us with those fantastic machines.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw the XRF, we were running this company, and he said, but you can't use it for gold, because it's it can't detect such high values or something.
Yep.
So what's the point? It's good for everybody else except looking for gold.
Yeah.
But George, thanks for giving time and having a chat again. I'm always learning something when I talk to you guys about something like the likes of yourself, an industry that I've never stepped into.
Yep.
But I really wanted to talk about the market, which we did, and everything else, and what's happening, because I think there's still a lot of confusion. I've talked to guys who are shareholders in companies, and they try and tell me something. I say, yeah, but it's permanent magnets, and they look at me blankly.
Yep.
You know, and it's just as simple as that sometimes.
Yep.
But anyway, thank you.
No worries at all.
Okay.